What's up, guys? How's it going? My name is MikeTheTech, and my how time flies Virtualbox has now upgraded to 6.1.12. It was 6.1.4 not too long ago in my last Virtualbox video, so I thought I would do an update on how to not only install and configure Virtualbox, but in addition this time, how to download the ISO files necessary to install Windows 10. So I'm going to show you two different ways that you can download and install Windows 10 that work really well for me, and I actually have a couple versions up for direct download, so you can get the actual ISO files to install Windows 10. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. I'm at virtualbox.org, and you're going to click on, let's actually go to the main website and I'll show you how I got here. Virtualbox.org, and then you go to download Virtualbox 6.1, and you go to Windows host. That's assuming you're on Windows. I'm on Windows, so I'm going to download this one, but you can do it on OS X, Linux, or even Solaris if you're that 0.01% that uses Solaris. So once you download that installation package, you're going to go ahead and click on Next to start the setup. And this is normally just fine for what we're going to do. So let's go ahead and click on Next. If you do want to uninstall certain types of things, like if you're installing this to test viruses or something like that, I know I saw a lot of comments from some of you that like to test out viruses for fun. You might want to turn off some of the USB support or networking services to ensure that there aren't any exits from your virtual machine that the virus can extend out to your main computer with, because it's mostly safe, but some of the usage features that make it easier for consumers to use can open back doors for viruses. So be aware of that, especially like copying between your clipboard from your main computer to the virtual machine. Obviously, if you can copy and paste something like text, you can copy and paste something malicious. So some of those things should be disabled if you're going that route. But otherwise, leave everything installed as normal, because you're likely just using this for regular usage. So let's go ahead and click on Next. And we have these here. This is most of these options are fine. If you don't want clutter, you can turn off the shortcut on the desktop and the start menu entries and the quick launch bar. I would leave on the start menu entries at least, just to make sure that you can find it really easily in the start search, but the rest of them are optional. I'll go ahead and leave all of them on. Now it's going to install the network interfaces. That's fine. Go ahead and click on yes and install. You might get a user account control request. Just go ahead and hit allow or yes when it comes up. And we're going to let this install. Yes, install. Oops. All right, so now we have Oracle's Virtualbox installed. It's going to open up, and here it is. So the next thing we need is the ISO. Excuse me. The next thing we need is the ISO file for Windows 10. Now there's two ways to get this. There is an actual Windows 10 ISO downloader from Microsoft. You just search for Windows 10 download tool. It is the very first one. Yes. You download the tool now. Media creation tool. And this tool will allow you to actually choose the type, language, 32 or 64-bit setup, and edition of the Windows 10 ISO you'd like to create. You do need to be on Windows 10 to do this. But it will be a fully legitimate, up-to-date ISO, well, mostly up-to-date ISO of Windows 10 installations. So let's wait for this to finish. And don't worry, I do have an alternative method for you to download the ISO directly in just a moment. So when it says what do you want to do, you want to create installation media for another PC. Now, if you want to change any of this, you can uncheck recommended options, and you can actually get certain editions of Windows 10. And you can choose 32-bit, 64-bit, or both. So we're going to leave it at 64-bit, and then we will hit next. And we're going to choose ISO file. ISO file is going to create the exact type of file we need to install Windows 10. So that's pretty much all you have to do. It's going to spend this time creating that ISO file, and it will download it on your computer. Now the alternative method is on my channel. I've actually uploaded onto Google Drive and shared out 2 ISO files for Windows 10. So we can go to youtube.com/MikeTheTech. Alright, so we are here, and we're going to go to videos. And it would be nice if there was a internal search button for videos. But I'll put a link to this in the description, don't worry. ISO. Let's go through all my videos. Alright, ISO. Alright, Windows 10 ISO direct download links. This is the video. So, right here I have 2 versions of the ISO. I have the 1909 update. Some people had some issues with the 2004 update that came out, and they were having issues whether it be with Bluetooth or some of their features disappeared or things weren't quite right. So I did upload the March 28th, 2020 1909 version, and if you click on this, you will be able to download the exact ISO. Likewise, if you haven't experienced any issues with the new update, you can get all the new features and everything up to date using the 2004 version ISO. I believe the Media Tool creates the 2004 version of the ISO. So this is actually almost done, just finished, so that's great timing. So I'm going to close these ones. But yes, this link I will leave in the description below, so that if you do want to download them directly, you can do that. Let's go ahead and check up on our progress here. So I'll let this continue, and then we will return shortly. Alright, it looks like we're just about finished creating the Windows 10 ISO. That didn't take too long. So it's on my desktop. Great. Sure, clean up. Do whatever you gotta do. Alright, so now we want to use Virtualbox to create a new virtual machine for this Windows 10 ISO. So let's go ahead and click on New, and we're going to call this Windows 10. Pretty straightforward. And all of this is fine. It already has Microsoft Windows, and it has a 64-bit setup. So let's go ahead and click on Next. Now, memory size, recommended memory. I don't recommend putting more than 50% of your system memory. I like to keep at least 50% to keep the system running fine, and then the other 50% on the virtual machine. Windows 10 needs at least 4 gigs to run smoothly, so of course 4 gigabytes is a great place to start. But let's go ahead and we'll put 8. I'll put 8 gigs. As long as it's in the green, you should be okay, but I generally like to keep it at half. So I have 16 gigabytes of memory, so I'm going to put it at 8. And then we want to create a virtual hard disk. We need a virtual hard disk to install Windows 10 onto. The only incident, or the only case where you would not use a virtual hard disk is if you were running a live CD, which many Linux distributions actually use. So they recommend 50 gigabytes, so that's what we're going to be using. So let's go to create. We can choose which kind of hard disk we would like to create. Virtualbox disk image works fine because we're using Virtualbox. And then dynamically located is fine, which allows your hard drive to grow in size if you do add more files to it. They recommend 50 gigabytes. I'm not sure that I have 50 gigabytes on this drive, so let me put it on another one. Yeah, let's put it on the 4 terabyte drive. Alright. Great. So now we have a Windows 10 VirtualBox system, a virtual machine. So let's go ahead and go to settings before we input the ISO or anything, and make sure that everything's set up right. So let's take a look at advanced. This is where we can choose shared clipboard and drag and drop files. If you're using this for general use, this is a great feature. If you're using it to install viruses, stay away. You don't want any way for viruses to sneak their way off of the system, and these are great ways for them to sneak off of the system. Descriptions, you can add a description to remind yourself what this machine is for or what you've done on it. If you go to System, this is where you can adjust the performance. So if you go to Processor, you can choose how many processor cores are available to it. I'm just going to leave one because it'll run fine. If you'd like, you can raise this up a little bit to give it allowance to more cores on your computer. So I have 8, so it's recommending between 4 and 8. I'll give it 2. And then if you have a motherboard that supports hardware virtualization, you can enable this. But again, this will enable full access to your CPU at a very low level, which means if you are messing around with viruses, this could potentially affect your system. It's very unlikely, but it is possible that they could mess with things with the right tech. But if you do have it as a feature, this is a great way to speed up your virtual machine and give it direct access rather than virtualizing everything that it has to do. And then acceleration, you can leave this as default. You would assume this is for graphics acceleration, but it's not. In display is actually where we adjust the video memory. So here we're going to set the video memory as high as it can go, and you'll notice it is a painful 128 megabytes. With 3D acceleration, we can raise this up to 256 megabytes, which is basically not much. And changing to these other controllers won't do much either. So unfortunately, this isn't great for playing games. You'll be able to play some very basic games at the cost of a lot of CPU usage, but you can only use 256 megabytes of your actual GPU memory, which is unfortunate. So once that's set up, we're going to go over to storage, and this is where we're going to connect our Windows 10 ISO. So let's go to the empty CD drive, and we're going to choose a disk file, and it is on our desktop, and it's Windows ISO. So now the Windows 10 ISO is attached, and it will boot when we run the system. Going further very quickly through the rest of this, we have audio, which you can adjust what type of controller you'd like to use, and which audio drivers you'd like to use. You can also enable audio input so that you can use maybe a microphone in your virtual machine. Your network, this is allowing it to connect to your actual network adapters. You can choose which ones you would like to enable or create here. We can use serial ports and pass them through if you like, if you're working with an Arduino project, for example. USB controllers allow you to add devices so that you can actually use devices that are plugged into your real machine in the virtual machine. But again, that can open up potential security issues. Shared folders as well is a great feature for consumers that want to use this on a regular basis. You can have a folder that both your main computer and the virtual machine can access and share between. But again, this is something that viruses can escape from. I know I keep mentioning viruses, and most people aren't using it for that, but I've seen enough comments to feel like I should mention it. Okay, so the user interface is basically okay how it is. If you want to move things around, you can actually move things around, but it kind of just complicates things, and it's better just to leave as is. It's a great user interface. So we've got everything configured here. Awesome. So let's go ahead and start the machine and see if it worked. All right, so it found the ISO. That's great. So we're going to hit start. And it's booting into the Windows 10 installation media. Very nice. Alright, so we are in the Windows 10 setup. So let's go ahead and click on Next and Install Now. Alright, so this is where it would like you to activate Windows. You don't have to do this right away. You can just hit I do not have a product key, and it will let you continue the installation and use it for, I believe, 30 days or 90 days or something like that. But you do need to purchase a license to use Windows 10 on a regular basis. It's basically like another computer. If you already have a Windows 10 key, you may be able to use it on the virtual machine, but it will likely take a seat of that. So let's go ahead and choose Windows 10 Pro and hit Next. Accept the license. We're going to install Windows only. We have this 50 gigabyte drive we just created. This is the fake hard drive, the virtual hard drive that we created, not a real one. So hit Next. And the installation process has started. So this will take a while, so I will see you guys shortly. Alright, I think it's finished. So we're going to go ahead and let this restart to continue. There is one more step after we finish up with the Windows setup that we'll need to do to basically eject the fake installation media that we made to make sure that it boots into the operating system every time and doesn't try to go into the installer. But yeah, we are officially booting into Windows. If all goes well. Two more steps. Okay, so while this is getting ready, I believe we can go into our settings and then go to storage. Click on this Windows 10 ISO and remove disk from virtual drive. We just want to do this to make sure that Windows never actually starts with the disk in the drive. And at that point, you can actually go in and delete the original installation media because you're not using it anymore. Gosh, getting ready seems to be taking as long as the installation. Alright, it looks like it finally finished. I did install it on a regular 7200 RPM drive, not a solid state drive, so that's probably why it took a little longer to get through everything. But you're going to go ahead and choose your region. This is a standard Windows setup, but there's one step once we finish it that I want to show you, so I'm going to go ahead and run through this. You can skip ahead if you'd like. It just says I'm going to skip adding a second keyboard. Oh no, not more important setups. I mean, it's going to take a bunch longer. A Windows moment is a year in regular time. Alright, so we can choose to set up for personal use or an organization. If you have a domain that you're going to be joining, we'll set it up for personal use. Now we can either create an account or create an offline account. I recommend using a Microsoft account, but we'll go ahead and create an offline account just for this purpose. Or just for this case, because I don't want to set up a new Microsoft account. Limited experience. So, I'm going to say it's Mike Tester. They really push the online, or even better, use an online account. Nah. Password, test. Confirm password, test. Don't use test as your password. Security question. What's your pet's name? Test. What's the name of the city where your parents met? Test. And what's the name of the first school you attended? Test. Alright, this is some privacy settings that you can choose. Most of this is pretty okay to use, but you might want to turn some of it off if you don't want certain data to be in the cloud, or if you believe it might not be safe in the hands of Microsoft or whatever. You can turn some of these off. I'm just going to go ahead and leave these on. I don't mind. My whole life's online. Alright, so activity history, you can say yes or no. Let's go ahead and set it to yes. Why not? Let Cortana help you. I don't want Cortana on this virtual machine, so I'm going to hit no, but you can use Cortana. Just remember, you're going to have to install the audio input driver. Alright, so now we're running in Windows 10. It's currently finding all the drivers and such. We can open everything like we would normally do, and everything works just fine. But there's one more step that you'll want to do to get the most use out of it and the most compatibility with Virtualbox. So you're going to go up here to Device. You're going to go to Devices. So we're going to go to Insert Guest Editions, CD Image. And this is going to, let's go ahead and run the installer. This is going to install some additional features within Windows 10 to work with Virtualbox. This enables things like the shared clipboard, better mouse support, things like that. Direct 3D support, which is nice. Install, accept everything. This is all directly from Virtualbox, so it can be trusted. And then we can reboot. And that's it. Windows 10 is now officially installed and running the Virtualbox editions. Again, if you are using this to install viruses for testing purposes, don't install the editions or additional sharing features between your main system and Windows 10, and you should be golden. Thank you so much for watching, and stay safe out there. Peace.